Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm one of the co-founders at helloDarwin. I'm with Fabrice and Robin today, my two grant experts. So today, we're really excited to talk about export, commercialization, and to give you a landscape of what's going on in Canada right now about these grants and these type of grants. So we have a very simple agenda today. I'm pretty sure a few of you guys do not know us and what we do at helloDarwin and why we know things about grants, which is a very exciting subject for us. So I'll give you a brief overview of the company, what we've done in the past, and who we are. After that, we'll do a deep dive into the different type of grants that are available across Canada and different provinces. But of course, we're going to talk about the big one and the big gift that we have every year is the CanExport program. And we'll talk about the political context and the economic context that we have that will be influencing your company and the landscape of grants for the upcoming years. So without further ado, who we are. So basically, helloDarwin has been launched about 7-8 years ago. We specialize, it's very simple, in finding grants for your business. And once we found these grants, well, we file them for you. So what we'll do is we'll do a brief overview of your business. We'll do a deep dive of your business, of your different departments, HR, digital, operation, commercialization, any types of investments that you would have within the business. We'll look at them, we'll break them apart, and we'll try to put them on a timeline. And when the grants will be opening, closing, we'll try to break that down into most optimized way to get a return on investment and to reduce the cost of your investment for these projects that you have throughout your 12, 24, 36 months that you are with us. So you have an account manager that will be managing your relation, and you have an analyst that will be filing these grants for you. It's pretty simple. But today we want to focus on one department, which will be exportation, commercialization. So if you have any questions about any grants, I mean, we're there to help you, and we want that to be a conversation. So please ask all of your questions into the Q&A that we have. We won't answer in the chat, so really the Q&A, it's two different aspects that we have in the Zoom. So we'll try to answer all of these questions that we have today. If we do not have the answers, we'll search the answers, and if we can't give it to you today, we'll get back to you with the answers about the grants. It's to transfer the information that we have today. Did I forget anything, guys?
No, I think you pretty much touched on everything.
All right, so let's start. Current economic and political context for exports.
Yeah, I think that's it's a big topic right now, and I think there's a lot to say. I don't think we have to spend hours talking about it, but
I can spend days talking about it.
For sure. Would you give us a few highlights, maybe, of what you can say, what's going on?
I mean, if we talk about economic context, I'll address the elephant in the room right away. We have our trade partners in the South who have been causing a lot of ripple effects on a global scale when it comes to trade, when it comes to economies. And what we know historically is Canada is very interlinked with the economies down south. Mm-hmm. And that has created a lot of pressure, a lot of uncertainty. And we've seen that in the form of tariffs. They have been come on, they've come off, they've come on again. It really is an uncertain time. It happens at the drop of a dime, and we want to be more resilient. And really what we're going to be covering today are some of the things or incentives that the government is going to be pushing and putting forward to assist businesses to at least alleviate some of those pressures that we're facing.
Definitely, because businesses are struggling to wrap their heads around what you're saying is going on, and I think also the government is recognizing this and trying to put out specific tools to help them navigate and maybe also diversify away from from the United States or from like classic trade partners.
Absolutely,
that they're used to.
If we talk about market diversification, Canada in itself, we have 15 free trade agreements signed across the globe. That's around 51 nations that we have partnerships with. And there are already talks to create a whole other trade partnership. And it's going to include $1.5 billion people. That is a huge market to tap into. And these are the things that are happening as we speak. These trade agreements are happening, and we want to be at the tip of the helm, take advantage of some of these incentives that are being pushed out. There are a lot of trade missions happening, and those are things we're not going to touch on. We're going to focus really on live incentives that are here that businesses can leverage.
And I think it's an important thing to mention that the trade agreements are something that usually are going to be prioritized when we submit a grant. If you have a country that has a trade agreement and you submit that for a grant, it's going to be helping you. So I think it's important to look at the landscape and to have that overview when you're aiming for new market and expansion.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely something we are going to be talking a lot more of when it comes to diversifying trade. It's something you've been hearing as a buzzword in the news for the last 12 months, and you're going to keep hearing about it. I think for the next easily few years, diversification is going to be the name of the game.
Exactly. And stability. Trying to find stability because of the South.
Stability is definitely going to be it. So I think the biggest thing when it comes to the government in terms of incentives, I'd like to give Fabrice the ball over here. We're going to touch on CanExport, this being one of the biggest funding envelopes done through the government.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of an overview on some of the changes that have happened on CanExport, and can you give a history on helloDarwin's success with CanExport?
Yeah. Let's start with that maybe, because I mean we have a lot of clients, of course, who do CanExport with us. We had a lot of applications last year. About $4.2 million worth of client projects have been financed through us with the CanExport grant. We got about 1.7 million, I believe, in CanExport funding for our clients, which is about, I think, more than 5% of the global envelope that CanExport has at its disposal. So it was definitely a success for us, and it's it's an important program for Canadian businesses, even if they are not exporting yet. So it's really a program that is aimed at exploring or testing or venturing into new markets.
What's nice about this one is, I mean, fingers crossed, but it's coming back every year, so you can complete or continue your project, I would say. So you start by expanding, and then it goes well, you can deep dive and do another step with your project. So this is usually grants, they do not come back every year. We don't know, it's it's unknown, but CanExport has been there for many years. So that's one that it's good to know about and to keep on digging on.
Yeah. So what are some of the major changes from last year to this year when it comes to CanExport?
Well, obviously, the big elephant in the room is the United States. So already last year, we knew that this market was not prioritized in their application project, but it was not clear to what extent. So this year, it's clearer. So only 10% of the 30-something million CanExport envelope will be allocated to projects for the U.S. So 90% of the envelope will be to diversify markets in the rest of the world. So really clearly deprioritizing the US market. In terms of other changes, the program is quite similar to the previous year. There's a small change in the eligibility requirement. So it moves from one full-time employee to 3 full-time employees minimum, and you have to have a revenue of minimum $300,000 and maximum $100 million.
Do you think they're doing this because of how popular this grant is?
Probably. That would be my guess. I think it's also maybe smaller companies tend to sometimes submit applications, but they're not 100% certain that they will follow through with the project. It's an issue for the government if the funds that they allocate to a company will not be spent, because then they will also not meet their objectives.
Right.
And I think it's the first year that we see CanExport at it closes when they run out of fund. Usually they have a window that's open for the full time, and this year what they said is that we have fund and it's going to close that at that closure. As soon as it's completed. And usually they will look at everyone and give the money to everyone depending on how they prioritize things and give out points. I do have a few questions. Do you guys want to go through these questions right now or keep talking about CanExport?
Let's do the questions.
All right.
This is what we're here for.
Yeah. All right. So first one, we are evaluating of our target market priorities. Is it worth selecting the U.S. as a target market for this cycle, or is it more prudent to focus on other global markets for now?
Definitely other global markets.
Yeah. So basically, I agree with you. I think that we see a lot of I mean, our expectation are 80% directed towards US. And we know that it's going to be something that is going to be keep going on. Geographically, it's our neighbors and they give us a lot of money, right? So, I mean, you can still do it, but chances are that they will prioritize other projects. You won't be refused, but they will prioritize different markets because we need to diversify and kind of find that stability that we haven't been having because tariffs are changing from Monday to Friday. You're not going to be paying the same tariffs. So with that, it's being very hard for the government to prioritize these types of markets that are unstable.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that one. Would you be able to include more than one market within a single application?
Yeah,
including the US?
It's a very good question because that is also a change that happened actually last year. You cannot include a different market if you are including the US. Okay. So if it's US, you have to be committed. And of course, that makes it even more competitive because there's going to be a lot of companies going for the US with only 10% budget. However, if you go outside of the US, you can add 5 markets. So one market is one country. So you could go to Germany, Japan, France, and Switzerland, let's say, for example, which is still quite, gives you a lot of opportunities.
Oh.
All right, so I'll go with my next questions. This one is a bit heavy and it's broken down in like 3 points. So I'll start with the first one. Okay. For an export project to Barbados, are shipping samples, compliance, documentation prep, and in-market partner agent development eligible expenses under current categories? Do you guys understand my question?
Yes, I don't know if I remember all the elements, but most of them, yes. So you can, if you, let's say, participate in a trade show in Barbados and you need to ship some samples to the trade show, as long as you don't sell them at the trade show, you can include that expense in your CanExport application. Then there was a part about consulting.
Well, I would say if we go on the second one, I think that will help you. But if we need technical consulting to support equivalency for import acceptance, can that be funded as a consultant expense?
Equivalency for import acceptance. So I can maybe, I'm not sure what that's related to. I can maybe say a little bit, and that's a part of the next slide of what kind of expenses you are eligible. Covered.
Yes.
So yes, you can have consulting fees as an eligible expenses, and these are covered in terms of like trade consulting. So that you're working with a specialist who's helping you with a market study, with B2B prospect identification, for instance, or somebody who is like a legal or fiscal specialist, as long as this is related to contracts or things that partnerships that you're setting up with overseas prospects or potential clients. So it's not related to taxation if you are setting up an office, for example. That's something that's more about sales tax, things like that. I hope that maybe...
I think that helps, but if you want to ask your question again, if we haven't been clear, I mean, try to be like in a few sentences, because I mean, we have to read them out loud, and sometimes we cannot deep dive into your project specifically. But after that, after the webinar, if we still haven't responded, feel free to email us. We'll give you answers. It's going to be a pleasure. So my next question would be from Unique. Does the CanExport grant cover retail?
If you are a retailer, you can certainly apply for the grant. There are a few limitations when it comes to distributors, for example, or consultants. Ideally, you will always want to prove the added value that you bring to the Canadian economy. So the grant is going to ask, like the application is asking you questions about how is there like local content to the product. or the services that you sell or that you intend to sell abroad, and there will be you want to measure the impact that your business has on the local economy. So if you have like qualified personnel, or you're planning to hire or do research and development in Canada, or even if you're working with Canadian suppliers, that are all elements that will strengthen your application. So yes, retailers are not ineligible, but they, ideally you will have to show a good impact on the local economy to maximize your chances.
All right, thank you. So my next question would be from Savine. So how much time should we plan? And that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Because this is being difficult internally as well. How much time should we plan to spend on completing the application?
I think it could go a lot of ways.
It really depends on businesses, but Fabrice would know really well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is a competitive program, and it is evaluated on a lot of qualitative elements. So you want to submit an application that contains a certain level of detail, a certain level of specifics about the market opportunity that you're looking for. So in order to build that argument, it will require time. So I think if you can work full time on it internally as a company, I think you would have to set like a week-ish aside to kind of get everything together, make the arguments, because it's also a lot about budgeting. How much is your trip going to cost that you're planning to do in 6 months? How much is the booth for the trade show? Are you working with some marketing experts that are helping you with the promotional material? So you'll have to budget that into the application. So it's a lot of internal research or finding the.
Yeah, and I think the preparation is the hardest part, because you have to find like anything that you want to ask to spend on. Usually you have to prove what it's going to cost. So let's say you want to go to Germany, then you need the plane tickets, you need the hotels, you need the trade shows that you're going in, why you're going there, how much it's going to cost you. So all of this, you have to gather that data. I think that writing it is not that hard by itself, but all the preps that you need to write it is very long, because you need all this type of different infos that sometimes you don't have, and that you're like, okay, the plane ticket is going to be in like 8 months, 10 months from now. Like, which price should I take? So these are things that you might be banging your head on sometimes. And after that, you need to prove that you'll have a return on investment for your company and for the country. So the more details that you have, the better it is for your application. So it's worth putting some energy into it.
Yeah, definitely taking more time to address all the little details will put your application ahead of others. I had a question when it comes to expenses. Do you need to submit all of your invoices during the application, or is that submitted after?
Yes, and the answer is no. It's a very good question. No, you will give estimates that are just simply written by you in the application, but you don't have to submit any kind of proof or quotes. If you have the quotes, however, it's a bonus, because then you can provide additional detail about who's the supplier that you're going to work with, for example, for the consultants or the legal fees, and what is the detail, the specifics of the mandate. So with that information, the application will be, of course, more detailed and therefore stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I do have a lot of questions, so that's really nice. Perfect. So I'm going to go with the next one. So does the CanExport program cover consulting for companies to review their CUSMA compliance with regard to exporting?
I'm not 100% sure on this one. I would say yes, because it is consulting related to trade that will help you access new markets. So I would definitely put it in. If it's well documented, and explained, that shouldn't be an issue.
And in terms of those kind of expenses, especially if we're talking about, let's say, CUSMA, is there a restriction in terms of what new market means? It feels like this business is already doing trade within the U.S., so they already are CUSMA compliant. is there now a restriction this go around
Yes.
for what new market
That's a good
is?
point.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the reminder, Robin, as well, because since it is a grant that covers developing new markets, there is a restriction, and you can actually only have an expense in the target market if you don't exceed 10% of your overall revenue in that market. So if you sell more than 10% of your global company revenue in the US, that will automatically exclude the US as a target
As a new
market,
market.
for the application.
Okay.
Yeah.
CanExport is really for expansion into new markets, not into like expanding your current one that you already have.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
All right. Next question would be: is it a 50K cumulative per company or per market application? Like, can I do one market at 50K and another one at 50K, or should I be like managing my budget accordingly?
It's 50K per company per application. So
Yeah.
you can do one company can only have one application open. So you have to, let's say you submitted an application, got accepted in 2025, you will have to close it, do your final report, all expenses reimbursed. The final report needs to be approved. Then you can reapply in 2026 once that is completed. But yes, 50K maximum per company.
Okay.
All right. So my next question would be from David. Is there, and I think the minimum eligibility criteria are interesting. Is there a minimum annual export amount to make my company eligible for the grant?
A minimum, you actually, no, you don't have to be an exporter or anything no, you can have 0 exports. It's, and I would even encourage, even companies who want to export at some point to apply. What is, however, taken into consideration is the experience you have exporting. So it will, they will analyze, how many, resources you have. Do you have experience in maybe other international markets? That will, give you a little bit of extra credit, to solidify your application. But again, since it is a program that's aimed to develop new markets, you don't have to have export experience.
But you do have like minimum annual revenues, employees, and stuff like that, right?
300,000 minimum annual revenue, 100 million maximum, 3 full-time employees minimum, and maximum 500.
And I think we're going to reiterate, if you have particular questions regarding your business, absolutely after the webinar, feel free to reach out to the team and we can book some time together to really go in depth and really analyze any sort of questions you guys would have regarding CanExport or any of the other grants we'll be touching on today. But I guess when it comes to CanExport as well, would you be able to put in a project? From my understanding, you don't have to be an exporter at all.
No.
Does a project qualify if now you're just going, let's say, to the UAE and you're doing a market research with a firm over there just to understand the market to potentially develop a product for it?
Absolutely. So it can be exploratory as a project. There are your objectives. It is a commercialization program. So ideally, at some point you will want to sell in that market, but it can be really preliminary phases so that you're starting with maybe one trade show and a market study of that market to understand what's going on. But there doesn't have to be a financial objective immediately attached to it.
Amazing.
All right. Next question from Savin. She missed the first few minutes. I think she was heating her plates in the microwave for lunch. So she says, I think I heard something about if you are successful with CanExport, you can easily reapply for an expanded grant. Would you like to give some details on this?
For an expanded...
Well, I think what she means is that if you're being accepted to CanExport, then you can reapply. From what we saw is that you need to continue your expansion in the same market. But so if you apply in, let's say in the US, you need to continue your project. You cannot reapply for the exact same things. You need to prove your success and then move on from there and continue. So, but it's not within the same year. It's in 2 different applications with 2 different openings.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind as well is if that project has now incurred revenue from that new market, you have to ensure that you stay within or be under that 10% mark.
Exactly, that you are still developing that market because you have some maximum criteria that you need to respect.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Next question would be from Serge. Can we have CanExport SME and CanExport Innovation in 1 year as long as it's for 2 separate projects? Good question.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe, yes, as long as you don't put the same expenses into both. There you could maybe, cover a part of some expenses, but it becomes a little bit complicated to monitor. So ideally, you separate the project and the expenses that you submit.
I think it would be really hard to have it's 2 different grants and it's 2 very different grants. One is to innovate, one is to expand your market. So they would be at 2 different specificity in where you are for your development. So one is for sales and one is for usually developing new projects or new ideas.
The scope of the project is completely
but if you
different.
put the same plane ticket, of course, it's not going to work. But 2 different projects would not be a problem.
Absolutely. And if you're doing CanExport in innovation, I don't think you should be listening to this webinar because the deadline is tomorrow at noon. So I would encourage you to go and work on it as quickly as possible.
The window is really short on this one.
Do we have any other questions?
I do have 15 other questions.
Wow.
I think, on
Okay.
CanExport, so we'll keep on going. We do have some other grants for exporting within other provinces, like Manitoba has some and stuff like that. So we do have other ones, but I think CanExport is being very popular. So we'll try to go with all your questions. So can we apply if we have a service company not selling products but services?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, straightforward.
Yeah, maybe if you want to get a little bit more details, what they don't accept is if you're a consultant and you're applying on behalf of some other company, or you're providing services that have no real added value, that mostly are outsourced to other countries. But as long as you're a Canadian entity providing Canadian services from Canada, mostly that is totally acceptable. Yeah.
I think we've been through this one already, but is consulting with an import-export border agent covered?
Import, no. Export, probably yes.
Technically, yes. Again, it's going to depend on your project, I guess. But technically, yes. Robin, one for you. What is the main value add of helloDarwin as opposed to trying to apply by ourselves? What are your fees?
In terms of fees, it's really going to be dependent on really the scope of your projects. But what was the first part of the question?
Why would they use
Why
us
use
technically?
HD?
Yeah.
Really, the benefits to using a service and a firm like ours is one of the questions we also had addressed is the amount of time that takes to be dedicated to applications. And Fabrice had mentioned it's going to take around a week's worth of time, full time, just for something like CanExport. And that's just touching on one grant. Mm-hmm. What we do here at HD is we want to really understand your business as a whole. So we're going to be looking at everything you've done in the past, what you're currently doing, and looking at future projects, and really establish a whole funding pipeline for a whole packet of different kinds of grants. And our goal and objective is really to maximize the amount of capital that you're going to be able to retain from grants. That's the end goal and where we specialize.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, the number one complaint that I hear is, oh my God, I didn't think applying for grants would be that much work.
Yeah.
And that's by working with us. So what I mean is that you only see the tip of the iceberg and it's still a gigantic amount of work. So doing that by yourself sometimes might not be a priority right now because you have some fires to put out and you have to focus on some stuff, but you do want the free money of 30K, 100K a year that's going to give you to make your business lighter and your costs lighter. Yep. So I'd say that's the big win. And technically, if you work with us for only one grant, of course, we don't have that much added value, but it's good because we're going to raise your chances of success. Where we really add value is to work with you for a couple of years and break down all the projects, all the investments that you have, and be ready to apply when that window opens. Because usually when the budgets are running out, then it's closing down, and you miss your chance because you took too much time to write it down and to apply from it. So this is where we really bring on value, I would say. It's just for you to be ready day one. Of course, we'll do everything for you to be ready day one, but technically it's going to also take some time for you to prep some stuff that we cannot be doing for you, like the plane tickets that you need to go and gather. But I mean, it's very heavy, it's very complicated, and we try to make that project lighter and enjoyable, but it's still grants.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, one point that we saw, like historically, of clients who have applied on their own for CanExport, got rejected, and then applied with us, is that, we cannot guarantee that the application will be approved, or we can also not, submit an application that is better than the project of our clients. However, we can ensure that it meets the basic eligibility criteria, which is something that is maybe kind of tough to wrap your head around when you're not used to. And each grant has their own. So many times we saw companies that applied the previous year and got rejected. The application was good, but there was like a minor element, for example, the 10% criteria for the market, and they were at 11%. And so it just got rejected, even though, they had other markets that they were eligible for, and we submitted the following year, and then it worked. So it's also kind of managing, the risk of being rejected.
Yeah, and I'm going to add just really one final piece on it. The really biggest advantage as well is we're doing this day in and day out. Grants, incentive, tax credits, as well as interest-free loans to the government. So anything to do public funding, that is our expertise. So we touched on as well, CanExport Innovation. It's a 24-hour window. We've known about this, so we can already prep and have things going. Our goal and objective is to be proactive instead of reactive, really taking care of all of your projects, looking over the course of the next 12 months, next 24 months for what your business is wanting to do, and then we'll really lay it all out, and we'll use our expertise to really make sure that every application has the best chances and merit to be able to get approved for the maximum funding amount. So.
I'll try to select the good questions that we have, because we have many. So one that's nice is, are the grants a taxable income? Do you guys know?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Grants are definitely taxable income. So the one thing I always say as well to any client is, grants, not only are they taxable income, they are not free. It's not just the government saying, here you go, here's money, go do what you want. There's actual reporting that's going to be need to done behind it, as well as most grants will also have a matching component. So when we say the CanExport is 50,000, they're not just going to give you 50,000. There's still the component of your own cash incentive, that needs to be put in and injected towards these projects to be able to even receive the grants.
Are you saying it's so complicated nobody should get should try and get?
I'm saying these are levers and advantages and incentives that are put out by the government there for objectives and goals, and more businesses need to take advantage and leverage these tools that are available to them to ensure that they are able to really move forward with the projects in the best form possible.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, I have a good one that's a bit long. I'll try to make it simple, but our enterprise software often requires on-site installation and technical training at foreign facilities as part of a pilot or proof of concept before a commercial contract is signed. Can CanExport help that? Where do they draw the line into like these type of costs when we're doing investment to export?
So my understanding is they're doing foreign training for a software they're going to be utilizing here.
No, I think at the premises of the client, I would guess. So they would sell, I guess, the software or the service. That's my understanding. And then they have to train the client for that. I've come across a few of those. And CanExport actually has opened the door to this year. However, it is still not 100% clear to me to what extent. So last year, this was a no. Okay. However, this year, there is the possibility of adding training or in order to make the sale, or like kind of pre-implementation training. It's not 100% clear to us yet where the line is here.
Okay.
All right. This is a question that seems to be coming back a lot. So what are the main regions of rejection that you guys are seeing?
Fabrice, take out the list.
Let's do it. For our clients, so it's rare that obviously something is an eligibility criteria because we verify it. So we had pretty good acceptance rates, usually around 70-75%, I would say. Of course, sometimes we even submit for a client where we think, it's a small chance of acceptance, but we'll still take that chance. So the main reasons would be one that came a lot last year, which was also a new criteria, is that if you have a sister or a mother or an associated company, a subsidiary, for example, in the target market, it is very hard to get it. They don't say that it's ineligible. It's ineligible if that company does the same activities as yours. But even when it didn't, the application most of the time got refused because there was like a doubt. So if you have a subsidiary or any company that is related to your company in your target market, I would discourage to apply for that market. That is the main reason. Sometimes applications get rejected if there are not enough specifics. So if the market potential is not explained well, if you don't have a clear idea of who you're going to meet at trade shows, who are your prospects, what are your objectives as well? What do you want to reach? You want to sell 100,000 in Germany the next year, more. So all of these elements you want to specifically include in the application to show that the company is well prepared and that also has the resources to front the money,
right?
Because you will get it reimbursed sometimes 6 or more months after you commit the activity. So if the program feels like the company is not solid or well prepared enough, they will reject the application because it is a competitive program.
All right. And I would continue on that. Do you see what are some important questions in the application?
Yeah, the typical questions. There's a section about the content of your product or service. So how much of it is made in Canada or Canadian supplied. There are questions about the resources of the company. So they want to know who will be the team in charge of leading the project. What is their expertise? What are your financial resources? Do you have a solid cash flow to front the money? For example, what are your material resources? Or for example, do you have the necessary production capacity to respond to an increase in demand that will result from successful, the diversification, and then also some, statistics maybe about, why Germany and not France, because the pharmaceutical market is booming according to a recent study. So those elements would typically be required. Yeah.
I'm being told that we have 20 minutes left, so I think it would be good to do a quick recap of the grants that we have available, and maybe we can come back to CanExport at the end, because we do have some exciting grants in the rest of the country and provinces. So I think we should do an overview of them and then come back to CanExport. I still have 10, 12 questions. But yeah, so I'll let you guys go.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Robin?
When it comes to really exporting within other countries, CanExport is a federal level program, so it's available to every single organization and business that meet the eligibility criteria across the country. But then there are more provincial and niche programs. One that I'm going to touch on over here is the agri-marketing. This one is actually another federal level program, but this is to do with trade for the agricultural sector. You're looking at projects that would include market diversification. You're looking at doing trade missions. So It would include and encompass some of the same things as CanExport, but it's a much bigger package because you'd be able to also include advertising costs within this. And there are some particular streams where you're also able to include CapEx to be able to develop products for said markets. It's something really, really neat to take advantage of if you're within the agricultural sector. So agri-food processors, the actual raw good processors, the actual raw produce manufacturers. This is something that's designated straight for you. And
maybe a point about agri-marketing, and we forgot to mention it.
Sure.
CanExport. It's actually the reason why this grant was increased is because CanExport does not accept agri-food companies this year.
Good note to make.
They can pivot to the agri-marketing program, which is at least just as interesting.
Exactly. If I would say, if not more interesting, specifically for the agri sector.
I would say so too.
And now, if we're going to be touching on provinces, every province has their own individual export focused and diversification focused grants. There are only a few that don't. So Ontario being one of them, PEI, and I believe Newfoundland being the other one. So there are 3 that don't have provincial programs. So why that's important is CanExport being a federal level program, you're able to take certain expenses and projects from ones that you would apply within CanExport and also apply for within the provincial program as well. So essentially taking the amounts that you're including and stacking them. So that's what you would have the ability to do. And one of the large ones I think we see a lot taken advantage of because it's a bigger market is PSCE. So, Fabrice, can you give us a little bit more detail?
And Fabrice, what you're saying is very, very interesting. So please make sure that you're a bit closer to the microphone so we don't miss out anything.
Absolutely. Thank you for the reminder, Jeff. So PSCE is the business development grant for Quebec companies, and you don't have to be a Quebec headquartered company. As long as you have an activity, an office in Quebec, you can apply for this one. What is interesting is that it's similar to CanExport actually, as it is a 50% grant. You can actually go get a little bit more money than CanExport, up to $60,000, and they tend to give the maximum amount you apply for. So it's a very generous program. What is interesting is that you can apply for activities that are located outside of Quebec within Canada. So interprovincial trade is accepted. However, the deadline for that stream of the program was at the end of January. However, it will open for other markets in the coming months. Again, typical expenses. Here is also the calendar of when they expect to open as related to the geographic markets. Important, there is no US accepted in this program. They completely removed it for anything, so they very clearly want to diversify away from the US. Yes, typical activities is quite similar to CanExport. What's interesting is that you can go hire a business development or sales rep and have the salary financed in part by this program. You can, they don't accept business travel as an expense, but you can submit, for example, your booth expenses in a trade show or any advertising, newsletters, and consulting for marketing or export related strategies.
Okay, yeah. So definitely one to take advantage of. If we move on to other, within the prairies in Manitoba, there's the Manitoba export program that they have there. This is, comparative to the federal program where it does go up to 50,000, but the difference here is you can go up to 75% of the actual cost, which I think is tremendous. And you have the ability to take this program and now stack it with the federal level programs. So if you go for the maximum of 50,000 from the provincial one, as well as 50,000 from the federal level one, you can go up to 100,000, which I think is fantastic, especially if you are now diversifying and looking to do trade shows in multiple different countries. Those ticket costs and booth costs can get relatively expensive really quickly. So with Manitoba, what we've seen is by putting it at 75%, they're really looking to incentivize heavily for industries. And again, all of these provincial programs, you just need to have a registered business within those provinces. You don't necessarily need to have the business headquartered within those provinces. So it will touch the same kinds of packages of eligible expenses. You're looking at market research. So if you're going into a market, looking into hiring an actual consulting firm over there to analyze the market, trade shows, you're looking at booth costs, per diem, registration fees, airfare to go to all of these things. And you're also looking at training. So that is something that's wrapped into the Manitoba program in itself. If we go into
training, would be like, for example, you would train an employee in the company to, better understand the market.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, so the training aspect of it, still, we want to focus on diversifying the market. So if you have a training now, I'm going to use a random example, and to be technically accurate, if you're learning now as a training to learn a new language, that is something that I've seen qualify for being as a training to enter a new market. Mm-hmm. So these are the kinds of expenses that we would want to look at. If we're looking at Saskatchewan, again, every single one of these provinces, I'm going to go through these a little bit more quickly now. The actual eligible projects and expenses are very, very similar, one-to-one for CanExport. Just to show you guys, there are provincial specific programs that you can stack on with the federal level. So if you are within these provinces or have businesses registered within these provinces, take advantage of CanExport and your provincial equivalent for any of these grants. Same thing, Alberta. The only difference with the Alberta expansion program relative to the others, it's really just a reimbursement. You have to go ahead and incur all the expenses, and once everything is done, then you will have to submit your final report, and only then will you start getting actual financing, and you're restricted to really much smaller amounts when it comes to per diems for the expenses incurred during trade shows. That's one of the really kind of restrictive, narrow aspect of the Alberta program. For BC, this is another agriculture specific and food product, food developer. It's for promotional and marketing material that's done into other markets. And really, one of the qualifiers, you do have to be either within agricultural manufacturing. You would have to have an NCIS code that fits these buckets. But same thing, it touches on one thing that's a little different. If you're looking to develop new packaging that is established for a new market, that would also be something that you can incur within the BC program. Through the Atlantic provinces, you've got the one in Nova Scotia. There are multiple streams when it comes to this program in itself. It's a smaller package. It's really directed to support some of the businesses that are looking to export. I know when it comes to the Atlantic provinces, fisheries are really the biggest chunk of economy over there. But for all the other businesses that are not within that space, the Nova Scotia Export Development Program is there. And again, I know I'm running through these relatively quickly. I do apologize. I know we have a good packet of questions still remaining.
I actually have a question too. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
do you know if these other provincial programs also support interprovincial trade? So, for example, if you go from Nova Scotia, I don't know, when you want to diversify.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have the particular granularity on each and every single one of these programs. But yes, one of the key differentiating factors for most of these export programs that are provincial, it does allow for interprovincial trade relative to CanExport, which is really anything outside of Canada. Very good question. New Brunswick, same thing as Nova Scotia. Another grant. This one goes up to 65% of some of these expenses. You're looking at a lot of marketing that's also included within that. And marketing seems to be a relatively tough grant to come by, or see grants that include marketing costs. So definitely take advantage of any of these.
All right. I think we should go back to the questions.
Yeah.
And that will give us some case studies at the same time. So let's go back with the first one. I think we've gone through a little bit and what's going to make it a success, what type of projects, but still, what would you say are the best practices and tips for success?
In CanExport or in
CanExport?
general?
I would go back to CanExport.
We're going back to
This
CanExport.
question has been here for a very long time.
Okay. I think it's important to look at the objectives of the government with what the government has in terms of objectives. You mentioned trade agreements, for instance.
Exactly.
You actually want to kind of follow the government's lead into, which markets to select. So there's a lot of that. And then you want to submit an application that argues very well what the value for Canada is, because of course, for example, you work with a consultant that is based in Canada who has an expertise, that would be like a small bonus point for that application. So and then because the government obviously wants, they also have boxes to tick. They have objective. They want to know that the money has the most possible impact for Canadians. So you want to also say what kind of objectives you want to reach with the with the project. So for example, you want to, double your sales in Japan, and what is going to happen with that, additional profit? Are you going to use it to do some R&D, develop new innovative offers, expand your catalog. So you want to make it as enticing and appealing as possible.
And I would say, from what we've seen, it's really prepare. Read
Absolutely
what the grant is about. Make sure you have a checklist that checks everything that they ask for. I would say if you have ADHD, you're probably not the right person to do it because it's a very, very thorough process, and you need to take some time and dive into it and make sure that all the commas are the right place, because sometimes one little sentence can make you confused.
Yeah.
So this is what's really hard, is to make sure that you check all the boxes and that you give them everything that they wanted. So it's to read what they want and give them what they want, and make sure that everything is filled at 100%. Preparation is very important.
Yeah, I could maybe add as well the fact that, if you are you desperately need the money, it's not a good idea to apply.
No.
Typically, the businesses who are the most well prepared, have the best cash flow, the highest profitability, will be the ones to get the grant.
Prioritize, yeah.
Exactly, because there are the highest likelihood that money will be used and the project will be completed, because the government is obviously wants that to happen, and so that their impact is the highest. The worst scenario for them is that they give the money to a company and then it will not be spent, and that money is basically lost in terms of economic development.
Absolutely.
All right, so my next question, still about CanExport, would be, does CanExport funding only apply to exploring Canadian goods or services, and do I need to act as an exporter of record?
Not necessarily. It's a very good question, because I think many businesses would have maybe a part or all of their manufacturing conducted abroad. So you do not, the simple answer is no, you do not have to be the exporter of record. However, you have to justify the added value for Canada. So for example, your design is done, your R&D and activities are conducted in Canada that create value for the local economy. it's very important to mention that. Yeah, again, the simple answer is no. The goods don't have to be exported directly from Canada.
And for certain, I think your answer is going to be CanExport innovation. But just to make sure, I understand the certification application fees are not covered. What about lab testing and consultants to advise our team on the technical gaps we need to meet their local certification standards?
Yes, certification used to be accepted for CanExport, now is extremely limited. I think it's just like a certification regarding equal opportunity practices within the business.
Would that be like in market studies to explore that market? Would that be accepted or?
Yeah, for sure. You can work with a consultant that will help you better understand the market, as long as it's not related to certifications. And then yes, there is the CanExport innovation program, which is very specific, however, and really related to R&D activities, international R&D activities. So if you're looking for a partner to conduct R&D internationally, you could look at the CanExport innovation.
All right. I'll continue with our questions. Our slides are done, so you'll be stuck with our faces for till the remaining of the side of the show. So if we have been selected to participate in a CanExport Team Canada trade mission and are applying for funding for that, can we also apply for the general CanExport funding? Would you know that? Is it too specific?
No. So usually, I think there was recently a trade mission to Mexico for which they opened specifically a CanExport for that trade mission. So yes, I would encourage you to apply and include your Canadian trade missions. Sometimes there is a limitation or a criteria. I'm not sure what trade mission they are talking about right now, but usually my answer would be yes.
Yeah.
Another question is, if our sales cycle is really long and sometimes we start doing a sale and then it follows on the next fiscal year, would that be impacting our reporting requirements, the evaluation of our project success, or?
Not at all. So these grants are obviously targeted as well, to help companies reduce the risk that it takes to venture into new markets. So I think the government understands that sales cycles vary by company, by sector, by expertise, and there is no there's no need to reach certain objectives to get the money. No.
All right, next question. For medical devices companies, would regulatory consulting fees be eligible?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Next one. I understand the submarket segments have been removed for the US, and it's a whole target now. It's like one whole target. If current sales in that market exceed 10% of revenue, would CanExport reject the application?
Yes. You already don't qualify for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. Next one, let's go. And I think there's a couple questions with that. Is there a fee for your service? Yes.
Absolutely,
yes.
there is.
Would you like to talk a bit more about it?
Yeah, when it comes to CanExport directly, we have one fixed fee just for doing the application in itself, and then we have our own turnkey solution. The cost of that really is going to be based on how many different projects you have and how many different grants we would be applying for. So really, it would be dependent per business. So definitely reach out, and I will gladly review everything with you to give you a more direct price.
So technically you have two options. Either you work with us for an annual year and you have an annual fee, or you work per pieces on the CanExport, and then you can talk to Robin about that and discover which would be the most efficient for you and beneficial. As a minimum requirement, do the 300-500 employees need to be based in Canada for CanExport?
Yes. However, they can be, you can have 6 part-time employees to be merged into 3 full-time employees, so that you can stack them that way.
I have 2 questions left, and the first one for another grant, that would be for PSCE Quebec. Can you confirm that the business needs to be registered in Quebec, or can the activity just take place in Quebec?
I'm not sure how I should take that question. The business, so yes, the business needs to be registered in Quebec. So you need to have a Quebec business number in order to apply. So I think that's maybe that answers the question.
Fairly straightforward, yeah.
And last one is, hi, do I need to have a booth? Can I only attend trade shows without booth?
Absolutely. It can be just a participation fee as a visitor. You can include that in the application. The minimum, however, amount that your project needs to contain for CanExport is $20,000. So you cannot submit an application that contains less than $20,000 worth of expenses.
Yeah.
It's the end, so we're right on time. It was the last question, so thank you all for all of your questions. It's been really nice receiving all these questions, and I hope we've been helpful with you guys. If we did not answer to all of your questions, please feel free to write us. I don't know if you guys have some final words.
Yeah, really, when it comes to grants, it is going to be first come, first serve. So same thing with CanExport. We see it come around every single year. It's a very popular grant. We definitely take advantage of the windows and apply sooner rather than later. The longer you take to put in an application, typically we tend to see them being stricter on the actual project amounts. So really reach out to us if you have any questions. Fabrice is going to be our expert for CanExport. Definitely reach out. Or if you would want, any one of us here to really analyze your business to see and understand the best way to optimize, the public financing landscape, absolutely reach out to anyone here at helloDarwin, and we would love to support you guys.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone.